In this video series, we will talking about empath and support for empaths. So this is a situation that I realized would happen time and time again, and it wasn't until I learned about being an empath and learning how to navigate these types of situations that I was finally able to kind of understand what was happening. So does this sound familiar? You are sitting at your desk at work, and then a coworker comes in and sits down and starts talking to you, and they talk and talk and talk and talk, and they won't even let you have a word in edgewise. And after time, you start to realize, every time I'm dealing with this, being an active listener, listening to this conversation and not being able to say anything I want to say, that you start to feel drained. And so this was something that it took me years to really understand that that is something that I was, participating in. And, in a normal conversation with people, you'll have an active give and take. And honestly, it wasn't really until I remember meeting my twin flame, which I will talk about in a later video or later videos, that I started to see and understand more of the energy dynamic between people. Because whenever I would talk with him, it's like our energies would kind of like build, and I would feel really good afterwards. There wasn't somebody felt, less than or taken away from, or one person felt elevated. It was a mutual thing. So I think, most people can relate to this where you're interacting with somebody and you feel like, you're not able to participate in this give and take situation. So once I kind of started to understand what was happening in those situations where one person is doing all the talking and you're listening, and then you start to realize, this really isn't fair. You're giving your active energy to this person by listening to them. So they end up going away from the conversation feeling good, feeling validated, feeling seen. And you come back feeling drained, not feeling heard, and so it really can start to kind of wear on you. So, one of the things that I would recommend is, when you start to realize that you experience this dynamic with people, it could be coworkers, it could be family members, it could be friends, you start to realize, hey, this really isn't something that I want. And you want to draw those people and situations into you where it's a mutual give and take, it's a mutual energetic exchange. And, so once you start to see that, then you can say, okay, this is not something I'm interested in participating in. And, depending on how assertive you want to be with it, if you don't want to get into, establishing and asserting your boundaries, at this point, you can, just be polite and just, say, I've got some work to do. I'm sorry, I need to, tend to this, or, I've got an appointment, you can act like you've got a text or something else to do. But just kind of, the main thing is that you want to protect your energy. And so if you just, say, okay, this is enough, and then you, end the conversation. Another thing you can do is, start being more assertive, start interjecting and say, I would like to say, something, or I would like to participate in this conversation. I mean, you have to voice the dynamic or what's happening, or, otherwise these people are going to just keep on taking your energy. And, it can be difficult to try to assert your boundaries into these situations and conversations. So, depending on how comfortable you feel, you can try it. Now, I know it can be difficult, and so sometimes, if that's the case, like if somebody is not quite on board yet with understanding boundaries, then you can always, do stuff like if they're talking to you on the phone, for instance, you can kind of put it on speakerphone and then go do something else, but there's different techniques that you can use in order to not have to have your energy drained. Now, each situation and interaction is going to be different. There's all sorts of different, scenarios that may be playing out in your own particular situation. And so I would try to do what feels most comfortable with you to you. I mean, I remember a long time ago telling my dad about this situation about, how a coworker would come in and, just end up talking and talking. And my dad would say, I would just get up and leave the office. And I was like, well, I guess, that works. So, we all kind of have our techniques for, getting out of situations. But the main thing is you want to understand that, this is an opportunity for you to learn how to assert your boundaries, how to, make sure your needs are met. And I mean, that's really what it's about. And so, we go through life and we're not aware about these things. We're not really taught social interactions or social dynamics. And so it isn't until we start interacting with people and realizing, hey, wait a minute, this is not fair. And, it is very, very common for empaths, especially, to, not stand up for themselves. And, a lot of times we just feel like we come across as the good listener, somebody who's kind. And, but at the end of the day, we feel like, hey, my needs aren't being met. I'm not being heard. And so it's really an opportunity for us to step up and start, asserting ourselves and being more in tune and aware of our needs, and just standing up for ourselves, being the sovereign creators that we came to be. So I hope this helps. Let me know in the comments if this resonates with you. I think it's something that, I did not really understand this what was happening until later. And now that I understand that dynamic, it's something that I am really, focused on making sure that I protect my energy, and that, you're in a mutual exchange with people going forward. So I hope this helps. Stay tuned for more videos to help you out on your journey. Thanks.